Follow our new channel, All Scoops Media Sports.
Among the people he informed on were his former drug colleagues and his women. How did he feel testifying against them?
I was overwhelmed by guilt. I was overwhelmed by guilt. I had every reason to testify against them and no reason at all to feel guilty. But it's that street corner indoctrination.
Yeah.
It was like sending him to grad school for drug dealers. Inside the prison, Edmond shared a cell with two men with Colombian connections. In 1996, Rayful Edmond was convicted again, this time for conducting his drug business from a prison phone. He got another 30 years for that, and sometimes afterwards he agreed to turn government witness. He became a snitch. In exchange,
it was Alpo, but his driver's license and other IDs had his witness protection name of Abraham Rodriguez with a Lewiston, Maine address. The murder scene stretched for blocks up to 151st Street. Alpo had been given a new identity when he was released from a Colorado Supermax prison in 2015.
Welcome to our exploration of the infamous lives of 5 notorious figures who dominated the drug trade in America, only to become some of the most infamous informants in history. Today, we delve into the stories of Nathaniel "Nate" Craft, a ruthless hitman from Detroit; Albert "Alpo" Martinez, a drug lord from Harlem; Leroy "Nicky" Barnes, the Mr. Untouchable of Harlem; Frank Lucas, the kingpin who revolutionized trafficking; and Rayful Edmond, who introduced to Washington, D.C. Discover how these powerful criminals transitioned from feared figures to crucial informants, ultimately reshaping the criminal landscape they once ruled.
I want you to admit it. Okay. Is the game still the same?
No.
Okay, now, before you went and did your thing, did we not have 100 conversations? I said you gotta be careful. And what'd you say?
Man, I ain't trying to hear that. What you telling me?
Stay out of my business. Who you think you're talking to?
Legend himself is in the building. Oh, I love that movie. Number one. Yes. Alpo Martinez. Underworld is in the building. Harlem. Go for Harlem. All right. East side. West side. East side. So guys, tell me something about the show.
Love to meet you.
He was one of the city's most notorious drug dealers, famous since the 1980s for his murderous ways and mountains of cash and drugs, immortalized in dozens of rap songs and the movie Paid in Full. But it all came to an end for Alpo Martinez right here on the streets of Harlem, right where it all began. These are exclusive photos of Alberto Alpo Martinez on previous visits to Harlem in recent years, but his latest visit turned out to be his last. On Sunday, about 3:20 a.m., police were called to Frederick Douglass Boulevard near West 147th Street. A dark red pickup truck crashed into parked cars. The driver was shot 5 times in the chest through the car window and killed. Alpo had been given a new identity when he was released from a Colorado Supermax prison in 2015 after serving more than 20 years for 14 murders. But instead of lying low, he couldn't seem to stay away from New York.
He's been seen riding around Harlem most of the time. You know, he's been seen down in Harlem a lot.
In addition to the murder convictions, Alpo was widely believed to have turned on many of his former associates in order to shave years off what could have been a life sentence. There is no shortage of people who may have wanted payback.
Police have arrested the man they say murdered former Harlem drug lord Albert Alpo Martinez. Cops arrested Shaquem Parker. He's 27 years old. He was already being held on Rikers Island in a gun case. Police say he also has priors for burglary, robbery, and drug possession.
Albert Alpo Martinez was a notorious drug dealer from Harlem who later expanded his operations to Washington, D.C., becoming a significant figure in the drug trade during the 1980s and early 1990s. His rise to power was characterized by his strategic partnerships with other notable drug dealers, including A.Z., Faison, and Rich Porter. Martinez's operations were marked by violence and ruthlessness, which helped him maintain control over his territories. In 1991, Martinez was arrested in Washington, D.C. on charges including drug trafficking and involvement in 14 murders. Facing the possibility of the death penalty or life imprisonment without parole, he decided to cooperate with law enforcement. Martinez's cooperation was extensive and led to the conviction of numerous associates, including his former bodyguard and enforcer, Wayne "Silk" Perry, who received multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. Martinez's testimony significantly disrupted trade in Washington, D.C. After serving about 25 years in prison, Martinez was released in 2015 and entered the Federal Witness Protection Program under the alias Abraham G. Rodriguez. He relocated to Lewiston, Maine, where he attempted to start a new life, even founding a construction company. Despite his efforts to maintain a low profile, Martinez frequently returned to Harlem, which ultimately led to his downfall. On October 31, 2021, Martinez was shot and killed in Harlem in what was initially thought to be a revenge killing by former associates or rivals. However, it was later revealed that his death was the result of a road rage incident. Martinez's return to his old haunts and his inability to completely sever ties with his past life ultimately led to his demise. Martinez's life and criminal career have been depicted in various media, most notably in the 2002 film Paid in Full, where his character was portrayed by rapper and actor Cameron. His story remains a testament to the dangerous and often short-lived nature of the drug trade and the complex legacy left by those who turn informant.
Yeah. So when it come my time to say what was for real and what wasn't for real, what wasn't real, I told it on them. I told them if you saw the movie, then you know to ask me if I told you see what I did. I got them back. I got them back, but good. You know.
And these were corrupt cops, right?
They were taking my money and I was selling dope for them, so you can call them what you want.
Frank Lucas was a notorious drug kingpin in Harlem during the 1960s and 1970s, renowned for his role in establishing a highly efficient trafficking operation. Lucas claimed to have bypassed the traditional mafia-controlled supply chain by purchasing directly from Southeast Asia, smuggling it into the United States via coffins of deceased American soldiers, a claim that remains disputed. In January 1975, Lucas's home in Teaneck, New Jersey, was raided by a task force comprising D agents and NYPD detectives. Authorities seized over $500,000 in cash, although Lucas claimed the actual amount was much higher. He was subsequently convicted of federal and state drug violations and sentenced to 70 years in prison. After his conviction, Lucas decided to cooperate with law enforcement. Lucas provided valuable information that led to the arrest and conviction of some family members and individuals involved in drug trafficking and corruption within law enforcement. Due to his cooperation, Lucas's 70-year sentence was reduced to time served after he spent 5 years in custody. However, in 1984, he was arrested again for attempting to exchange and served another 7 years in prison. Upon his release in 1991, Lucas lived relatively quietly, though he continued to face legal issues, including a 2012 guilty plea for attempting to cash a federal disability benefit check twice. Frank Lucas's life story gained widespread attention through the 2007 film American Gangster, starring Denzel Washington. The film dramatized his rise and fall, though many aspects of the story were fictionalized for dramatic effect. Despite the Hollywood embellishments, the film brought renewed scrutiny and interest to Lucas's real-life impact on the drug trade and law enforcement in New York City. Lucas's story remains a compelling example of the complex interplay between crime and law enforcement, highlighting both his significant role in drug trafficking and his eventual cooperation with authorities.
The gang, allegedly led by 24-year-old Rayful Edmond, reportedly sold 1,700 pounds of a month, bought directly from the notorious Crips gang in Los Angeles. Police say the Edmond organization enforced its will with violence. As many as 30 murders.
It takes a lot of guts to get up on the witness stand and testify against someone who is alleged to be as violent and as dangerous as Rayful Edmonds and his group.
In fact, the house of the family of one witness was firebombed after her testimony. Another key witness has refused to testify. Jurors are under 24-hour guard. Their names are kept secret. The whole trial is conducted behind bulletproof glass. Money, the government says drug money, has turned Rayful Edmond and his family into celebrities. His grandmother is tracked by camera crews as she attends the trial in a different ensemble each day. She's not charged in the case, although she owned the house that was allegedly used as gang headquarters.
I'm gonna break one of those cameras.
Money gave Edmond a flashy lifestyle, and money may have also bought the police.
Now, Edmond got an additional 30 years for his crimes in prison. So why do the feds now think he should be released early? Well, apparently he talked a lot. For 20 years, the D.C. United States Attorney said his cooperation had been both deep and wide. He discussed cold case murders, participated in reverse undercover drug sting operations. It ultimately all led the attorney's office to ask a judge to consider reducing the 54-year-old's life sentence.
I think it's much easier than when you're on the street.
Easier than on the street?
Much easier because you're right there with the people that have direct access to the narcotics that you need. Colombians, Cubans, Mexicans.
All thrown in together?
All thrown in together.
Thrown in with criminals like Osvaldo Trujillo Blanco, or as Edmond knew him, Chicky, a convicted drug felon.
He had a high-profile case. I had a high-profile case. So, you know, we were just wanting somebody to introduce us. We just was waiting for a person to come along and say, this Chicky, this Ray. And we just gonna go from there.
It was like sending him to grad school for drug dealers. Inside the prison, Edmond shared a cell with two men with Colombian connections. In 1996, Rayful Edmond was convicted again, this time for conducting his drug business from a prison phone. He got another 30 years for that, and sometimes afterwards he agreed to turn government witness. He became a snitch. In exchange, the government agreed to let his mother, Constance Booty Edmond, his sisters, and others out of prison.
When his former partner, drug kingpin Rayful Edmond III, became a federal informant.
Did you keep tabs at all with Rayful Edmonds? Like after this, have you corresponded?
Well, we were in touch somewhat until he became an informant for the government, and that was it with that.
Still, Rayful Edmond was a notorious drug kingpin in Washington, D.C. during the 1980s, responsible for introducing the area and significantly contributing to the city's crime rates. His criminal enterprise made millions weekly and established extensive connections with Colombian drug cartels. Edmond's criminal activities led to his arrest and conviction in 1989, resulting in a life sentence without parole for multiple charges, including engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise, conspiracy to distribute, and employing minors in drug trafficking. Despite being incarcerated, Edmond continued to conduct drug operations from within prison, using phones and mail to broker deals and maintain his influence in the drug trade. In 1996, it was revealed that Edmond had become a government informant. His cooperation was motivated partly by the desire to reduce his mother's 14-year sentence, who was also convicted for her involvement in his drug enterprise. Edmond's testimony and information led to the conviction of numerous drug dealers and helped dismantle significant portions of the drug trade in Washington, D.C. He provided crucial information on drug trafficking networks, including those connected to the Cali and Medellin cartels, and assisted in solving several murder cases. Due to his extensive cooperation with law enforcement, a federal judge reduced Edmond's life sentence to 20 years in 2019. However, he remains incarcerated because of a separate 30-year sentence for continuing to deal drugs from prison. Edmond expressed a desire to become a pastor and help rehabilitate youth involved in criminal activities if released. Rayful Edmond's story has permeated popular culture, featuring in documentaries, books, and music. He remains a controversial figure due to his significant impact on the drug epidemic and subsequent cooperation with authorities. Nathaniel Nate Boone Craft was a notorious hitman for Detroit's drug gangs during the 1980s, specifically working for the infamous Best Friends gang. Known for his ruthlessness, Craft claimed to have carried out approximately 30 contract killings, earning significant sums for his services. Craft's involvement in the criminal underworld began at a young age. By the 1980s, he had become a key enforcer for the Best Friends gang, which was notorious for its violent tactics and deep involvement in the drug trade. Craft was highly valued for his meticulous planning and execution of hits, which included high-profile targets such as rival drug dealers and those deemed a threat to his employers. In the early 1990s, facing the prospect of life imprisonment or even the death penalty, Craft chose to cooperate with law enforcement. His testimony was instrumental in dismantling major drug operations in Detroit. He provided detailed accounts of the murders he committed and the drug lords who hired him, including the activities of the Best Friends gang. His cooperation led to numerous convictions, significantly impacting the drug trade in the region. After serving 17 years in prison, Craft was released and returned to Detroit. Despite the initial threats he faced upon his release, he chose not to enter the witness protection program. Instead, he has been open about his past, participating in interviews and documentaries to share his story and advocate for criminal justice reform. Craft has expressed regret for his past actions and has focused on living a reformed life, even welcoming a child in 2021. Craft's life story has been featured in various media, shedding light on the violent world of Detroit's drug trade during the 1980s and his eventual transformation. His cooperation with authorities not only helped bring down significant criminal figures, but also highlighted the possibility of redemption, even for those with a deeply troubled past.
Whenever he's come to court, even the day he was convicted, Barnes has worn the same icy look, revealing no emotion whatsoever. So it was today as his attorney appealed for leniency, reminding the judge that his client had been acquitted on 3 of the charges, although he was convicted on 3 others. Barnes himself stood and claimed his innocence, maintaining that he never even spoke to the 3 people who had testified as the government's main witnesses against him. U.S. Attorney Fisk then told the judge that the proof had been convincing and overwhelming that Barnes ran the most profitable venal heroin ring in the city and that he should receive the harshest sentence possible to show others that narcotics is not the quick and easy road to riches.
Nicky Barnes turned government informant and began to tell all he knew. And because his testimony helped put 50 other people in prison, there are those in government who say he should be pardoned. Among the people he informed on were his former drug colleagues and his women. How did he feel testifying against them?
I was overwhelmed by guilt. I was overwhelmed by guilt. I had every reason to testify against them and no reason at all to feel guilty. But it's that street corner indoctrination, that criminal ethic, that street corner value system, it's overpowering. And I started crying on the stand.
From guilt. And emotion.
And emotion. I couldn't talk.
Barnes testified about his secret 7-member drug council, composed of the most successful black dealers in New York, some of whom attended this birthday party for Barnes in the middle 70s. According to Barnes, they shared an oath of brotherhood and loyalty to one another.
The oath of brotherhood was 7 words. Treat my brother as I treat myself. To treat my brother as I treat myself.
Was there a drug council?
Oh, the drug council is a myth. It's the first time I heard of council was when I was in court in 1983.
Guy Fisher, who had a brief affair with Barnes' former girlfriend, Shemeka, was a member of that 7-man drug council, according to Barnes. Fisher is now serving life without parole after Barnes testified against him.
You mean to tell me that you can give someone a life plus sentence because you said he had sex with my girlfriend?
And he's putting people behind bars, helping to make cases for the feds.
There is no justice in terms of that. Ah, man. I mean, 8 years ago, Nick was the scum of the earth in terms of court, being in the courtroom in Judge Worker's court. And then 3 years ago, he became Robin Hood because he was telling.
Leroy Nicky Barnes was a prominent drug dealer in Harlem during the 1960s and 1970s, leading a distribution network that earned him the nickname Mr. Untouchable. In 1972, Barnes formed the Council, a syndicate of major African-American drug traffickers that controlled significant portions of the heroin trade in New York City. Barnes's criminal empire thrived due to his strategic partnerships, including collaborations with the Italian mafia. His ability to avoid conviction despite numerous arrests contributed to his untouchable reputation. However, his high-profile lifestyle and media appearances eventually drew the ire of federal authorities, including President Jimmy Carter, who ordered a crackdown on Barnes's operations. In 1977, Barnes was arrested and later sentenced to life in prison without parole for narcotics trafficking. While incarcerated, Barnes became disillusioned with his former associates, who mismanaged his empire and personal finances. Feeling betrayed, he decided to cooperate with law enforcement, becoming a government informant. His testimony led to the conviction of numerous members of the council and other associates, including his ex-wife. As a result of his cooperation, Barnes' sentence was reduced, and he was released in 1998, entering the Federal Witness Protection Program. Barnes' life and transformation from a drug lord to an informant have been widely covered in media, including the documentary Mr. Untouchable and his memoir of the same name. He was portrayed by Cuba Gooding Jr. in the 2007 film American Gangster. Leroy Nicky Barnes passed away from cancer on June 18, 2012. However, because he was in the Federal Witness Protection Program, his death was not immediately publicized under his real name. News of his death only became known in June 2019, when it was reported by his daughter. The journeys of Nathaniel Kraft, Alpo Martinez, Nicky Barnes, Frank Lucas, and Rayful Edmond III highlight the dual-edged nature of power and crime. Their decisions to cooperate with law enforcement were pivotal in dismantling major drug operations and exposing corruption within their circles. These transformations from notorious criminals to informants underscore the complexities of justice and redemption. While their legacies are marred by violence and betrayal, their stories offer powerful lessons on the consequences of the drug trade and the intricate dance between crime and law enforcement. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of infamous snitches. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful true crime stories.
Follow our new channel, All Scoops Media Sports,